So the sample size has a big impact on how much variation we see when we take these samples. So I asked a class of 32 students, how do you feel about avocados? So the Y here are people who said, yes, I like avocados. N is people who said, I don't like avocados. And what we're going to do is we're going to think about as I group people together into samples, samples of 2, and then samples of 4, and then samples of 8. How does that change the data that I see? So let's start with groups of 2. So we're going to color code this one in green. So I've got my first group here. Now that first group there, they both like avocados. So that's a group where 100% like avocados. Now I'm going to change that 100% into a 1. I'm going to think about these as decimals. And there are really only 3 options. So if we look at the next group has one person who says that they like avocados and one person who doesn't. So that's a 0.5, right? 50% of them like avocados. And then the next one, both people said no. So that's a group where 0% like avocados. And we're just going to keep working our way through here. So here's a group. One, actually, let me put tally marks under each of these. That might be easier. So far we've got one group of each. Now my fourth group is a Y and an N, so they're in the 50% group. Then I have another N and a Y, so they're in the 50% group. Another Y and an N. Okay, 50% seems like the most common so far. Okay, here's a group with 2 no's, so that'll be one more in the 0% like avocado. Here's Y and N, another one in 50%, another one in 50%, another in 50%. Here's 2 Ys, so that goes in the 100% category. And then 50%, 50%, and 50%. So if I think about turning this data into a histogram, okay, I'm thinking about all the percentages I could possibly get between 0 and 1. And I'm going to break this into 3 bins because I really only had 3 options that I saw. So right in the middle was the most common option, and that was that 50%, right? 0.5. And that goes up to a frequency of 12. And then I have the 0% group. There were 2 in the 0% group, and I have 2 in the 1% group. Okay, so I get a nice unimodal graph here. Now let's look at groups of 4. Okay, and so we're going to do the exact same thing, except now instead of breaking them into groups of 2, I'm going to break them into groups of 4. So I'm going to use red for this one. So I've got a group right here. And I can see, okay, I've got 4 options. They can either answer yes or no. And this group, 75% yes. So I think I'm going to make a table like I did before. So 75%, got 1 in that category. And then in the next one, I've got 1 Y and 3 N's. So that's going to be down in the 25% category. Here, 2 N's and 2 Y's. Oh, sorry about that. I got a 50-50 split for that one. So that one will be right in the middle in that 50%. And I'll start putting some lines so I don't get confused. Here's another 50% even split. This one has 1 Y and 3 N's. That's in 25% too. 2 Y's, 2 N's, so I'm back in 50%. This one has 3 Y's and an N, so I've got another one in 75%. And another one right in the middle. So if I make the histogram for this information, I'm going to put 0.5 right in the middle again. Here's 1 all the way out here. Here's 0 down here. The 50% group has the most. Okay, it goes up to 4 for this one. And then I have to put 0.25 and 0.75 kind of in the middle. And I had 2 for each. Okay, so this goes up to 2. So I want you to notice something really interesting happening between these 2 graphs. Notice that the shape of this graph and the shape of this graph are pretty similar, right? They're both unimodal, they're both symmetric. But this first one is wider, right? It's going all the way out to 0 and all the way out to 1. The groups of 4 is a little narrower. Let's do the same thing now, but this is going to be in groups of 8. Okay, so we've got groups of 8 now, and this might be where we have to break out the calculator. I'm going to do this one in blue. So here's my first group. And out of those 8, I have 4 yeses and 4 nos. So that's a 0.5 right in the middle. Half yeses, half nos. We'll put a mark there. And then in my next group, I also have half yeses and half nos. Okay. One more after that. This one only has 3 yeses. So 3 out of 8 is about 0.375. It's a number sort of somewhere between 0.5 and 0.25. So I get 1 tick mark in here. Let me erase this extra line so we don't get confused. And then in the last group, I have 5 Ys and 3 nos. So that's on the other side over here. So 5/8 is 0.625. We'll put that at 0.63. So I've got 1 over there. So if we make the same kind of histogram that we made before, again, just like before, 0.5 right in the middle has a frequency going up to 2. So that's our biggest bar. But if I think about where 0.25 was before, and I bring that down, okay, here's 0.25. 0.37 is going to be right in the middle. And so that one had 1 box in it. And then going over again, so 0.75 is right here. 0.63 is going to be in the middle of those two. And this goes up to 1 also. So comparing this groups of 4 histogram to groups of 8 histogram, it's even more narrow. This is the narrowest so far. So as our groups get bigger, this is the key important idea here, okay? So as our group size increases, then our distribution narrows, okay? So as groups get bigger, the distribution gets smaller.